Hello and welcome back to the Bible Bearded and Bold. Today we're going to finally begin our study on the sanctuary structure of Revelation. This is a preparatory study to the actual study of Revelation. I know that this is a slow process and we're talking about chiasms and sanctuary structure, but you're going to deeply appreciate this when we dive into a historicist study of Revelation and see all of the amazing Old Testament references and how the book really connects itself, and seeing the beautiful mirror image, the chiastic image in the book of Revelation, and seeing Jesus Christ like you've never seen him before. We're going to see him as the Redeemer in a whole new light, in a way that will amplify what we've learned from the Gospels. So we're going to begin the sanctuary study today. It will be about a 4-part series. I don't know how many shorts it'll be. Hopefully not a lot, but I do encourage you to go back and look at the chiasm study. If you haven't looked at it, it's saved in a playlist. And remember, I'm a beginner at this YouTube thing, so I'm sure that somebody could do it better, but we're getting this thing started because I got something to share with you. So if you look at the book of Revelation, you will notice the first 3 prophecies are the 7 churches, the 7 seals, and the 7 trumpets. This is what's known as the historical wing of the chiasm in Revelation. It shows Jesus as our high priest. We need to remember that when Jesus was resurrected and ascended up into heaven, it says very clearly in the book of Hebrews and in Revelation that he ascended up and he became our high priest. He hasn't been just up there building us houses. He did reference that in John chapter 14. Very interesting passage. But there's a whole lot about him being our high priest. We need to go back and read the book of Hebrews. Now, when you look at Revelation's 3 prophecies in the beginning, the 7 churches, the 7 seals, and the 7 trumpets, we're going to notice that each of those prophecies begin in a different, from the proximity of a different piece of furniture that's in the holy place of the sanctuary. If you go back and read about the sanctuary in the book of Exodus and Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy, and really throughout other parts of Scripture, but that's where you really get the structural construction of the sanctuary, you'll notice that the sanctuary is built up of 3 places: the courtyard, the holy place, and the most holy place. In the courtyard, the main focus is the altar of sacrifice. And that altar of sacrifice obviously represents where Jesus gave his life, because every sacrifice in the Bible, minus the pagan ones, they were symbolic of Christ giving his life. So that gives a whole new spin when you read the book of Leviticus. It isn't boring anymore when you understand that those are different aspects of how Christ gave his life to you, and gave his life for you and for me. If you look at the Old Testament, it makes it very clear that the Old Testament sanctuary that the Hebrews used until it was destroyed by Babylon in 586, and then later it was rebuilt. It was much smaller. You can read about that in Ezra and Nehemiah. This is known as the Second Temple. It was destroyed in 70 A.D., and it was not as glorious as the first temple built by Solomon, but that's a whole other subject and irrelevant to what we're talking about now. But I want you to notice Exodus 25, verse 40. This is said in other places, but this is the first time he says it. He says to Moses, when he's up on Mount Sinai, he says, as you're building the sanctuary, make sure that you build it according to the pattern that is shown to you in the mountain. And he's very specific on how everything is supposed to be built. You see, the sanctuary that was built in the Jewish era in the Old Testament, it was symbolic of the sanctuary in heaven. And Christ followed the same system of the sanctuary in his ministry. He died on the cross. That represents the altar of sacrifice, or I should say the other way around. The altar of sacrifice represents the cross. The entire Hebrew sanctuary, again, it was modeled after the heavenly sanctuary. We also read about it in the book of Hebrews, chapter 8, verse 5. It says, that the Hebrew sanctuary served as a copy and shadow of heavenly things. Just as Moses was warned by God that when he was about to erect the tabernacle, he said, "See that you make all things according to the pattern that was showed to you in the mountain." Hebrews 9:9, it says that the Old Testament sanctuary system and all its sacrifices, festivals, and everything down to the lambs and the goats and the sacrifices themselves and even the high priest and the sanctuary structure, it all pointed forward to Jesus. The whole Old Testament points forward to Jesus. And we read in Hebrews 9:24, it says, "For Christ did not enter into the holy place made with hands, a mere copy of the true one, but he went into heaven itself, now to appear in the presence of God for us." So when Jesus ascended, he ascended to the heavenly sanctuary, which is a copy of the earthly one. And you even see this in Colossians 2:17. It says that the earthly sanctuary was a shadow of things to come, but the substance is Christ. It says that in Hebrews 10:1. Also, it's a shadow. So just like we have a shadow when we're standing in the sun, and the shadow shows the outline of who we are, it doesn't actually tell us who we are. It just tells us somewhat of what we look like. So the earthly sanctuary that the Jews worshipped and sacrificed at was a shadow of the real thing in heaven. Hebrews 9:12, it says, "Not by the blood of goats and calves, but through his own blood he entered the holy place once and for all, having obtained salvation for us." Now, there is one thing I want you to notice. The New King James Version, in my opinion, butchers this and destroys the pattern and the meaning, and there's absolutely no reason for it. The word for holy place is Hagia. The word for most holy place is Hagia Hagion, holy of holies, literally. But the New King James in Hebrews 9:12 has him ascending into the most holy place, and that is completely incorrect. He ascended into the holy place, as we're going to see in the book of Revelation. It's blatantly obvious where he ascended. So when he ascended, he followed the Old Testament order. On the daily service, the high priest ministered in the holy place. Only on one day of the year, Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement, when also known as Judgment Day, did the high priest enter the most holy place where the Ark of the Covenant is located. There's only one piece of furniture in the most holy, 3 in the holy place. So he was the sacrifices that were symbolized. And the Hebrews had many sacrifices, and they all pointed forward to Christ. And I want you to see that the sanctuary system points forward to Christ's ministry.